Hey guys, Adam here, probably a unfamiliar voice because you haven't heard me clearly yet, but welcome to the live stream. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I apologize. We will be back when we can. Really appreciate you guys being patient with us. To Lynette, let's see your face and see you.
Hallelujah, we did it.
Hello,
Yay.
yay,
Okay.
and welcome.
Well, we are back with another live. I'm Lynette Zang, founder and CEO of Zang Enterprises. And in Zang Enterprises, we work with real, sound money that is in your possession. What a concept. So make sure you hit that like button on the way in and leave us a comment. And there's a QR code, because if you don't have a strategy in place yet, you better get it done ASAP. So let's just dive right in. And I think I need to grab my laser pointer, and I do. So last week another bank reported not receiving customers report not receiving payroll deposits. Now, I will say that they did end up correcting that. However, the point is if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and if everything is intangible and they say no for any reason at all, you have no recourse. So this time it was in Canada, and it was Scotiabank and payroll deposits. But 5,000 reports of Scotiabank issues were reported. We are currently, and this is the kind of message you get all the time when this happens, we are currently experiencing a technical issue where some of our clients' inbound payments, including direct deposits and check deposits, are not being applied to their accounts. We are actively working to resolve this as soon as possible and apologize for any inconvenience. And what if they never came back online? What do you do? There is nothing you can do. Okay? So 90% of the problems were with deposits. Can you see how that can just kind of trickle, like have a domino effect? You're counting on that money to pay your bills. That money doesn't hit your account. Guess what? You can't pay your bills. So while they're saying, oh, the bank will refund any fees customers incur as a result, they can incur a whole lot more than a few fees. It can ruin your credit. It can do so many different things, but you lose access to that wealth. It is important in this transition into a fully surveillance digital economy that you hold sound money outside of the system, and some unsound money too. You do need cash. That's your first line of defense. But my question is, how many warnings do you need? How many? Will you heed this warning? Because once everything implodes, you won't have any more choices. We still have some choices. So this goes right back to CrowdStrike, remember, and Microsoft. Now, CrowdStrike is the is the security firm that had that glitch last week that is still not fully resolved. And maybe that's part of the technical difficulties. If you guys are experiencing some weird things with your computers, maybe that's all part of it. Let us know in the comments. But so this is this ginormous company that is supposed to be making sure that things can't get hacked or problems, tracking 230 plus adversaries and noting a record e-crime breakout time. The 2024 Global Threat Reports unveils an alarming rise in covert activity and a cyber threat landscape that is dominated by stealth. So when there's a problem, how do you know if it's just really a glitch like they want you to believe, or a much bigger problem? They don't want you to know about it. There are people that are a lot smarter than I am about what's happening in cyberspace, and they're saying that World War III has already begun there. We just can't see it. But the company that is supposed to protect these larger corporations and partnered with Microsoft, which is a name that you might not know CrowdStrike, but is a name that they partner with all these large corporations, and that's how this issue and this problem becomes your issue and your problem. What are you going to do about it? That's why I'm saying, if you haven't made an appointment to create your own strategy, you need to do it ASAP, because it's a rolling crisis. That's what we're dealing with here. So significant threat gains in data theft, cloud breaches, and malware-free attacks show that despite advancements in detection technology, adversaries continue to adapt. And all they're looking for is we talk about security as part of the mantra, right? All they're looking for is one little window of opportunity that allows them to get in, and boy, then they have all of your information. And corporations are not very easy to let you know when this happens. Maybe you'll know down the road, but this is happening. CrowdStrike says hackers are threatening to leak sensitive information about adversaries. Wait a minute. The company said some of its information has already been released. That was just the other day. This is what created the global outage, is CrowdStrike. The cybersecurity company CrowdStrike said Wednesday evening that some of the company's private information on the hackers it tracks had been posted online, and that the hacker behind the leak has threatened to release information that's even more sensitive. How do you and I know that that's not our information? How do we know that? We don't know that. The chances are very good that that actually is our information. And they can do all sorts of things with that information. And you're not even going to know. If you don't hold it, you don't own it, and it is in jeopardy. This is counterparty risk. This is all flipping counterparty risk. And what does the Bank for International Settlements tell us? Gold is the only financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. Hackers routinely threaten to leak private files and post samples they claim are evidence, often either exaggerating or lying about what they found. It is unusual, however, for a major cybersecurity company, i.e. CrowdStrike, to publicly acknowledge such a claim without refuting it. They can't refute it. Do you get how significant this is? Because this is a company that impacts what? Airlines, grocery stores, everywhere that you're possibly going to go. All of the business that you're possibly going to do. Hospitals, blood banks, banks, is what happened with the first company, the Scotia Bank. Is that another glitch, or is this part of the glitch? I lost my other computer to the blue screen of death. right? And we've been glitching this morning, and it's been weird and glitching. How do we know? And I mean, really, are you guys experiencing that? Because I know we are, and banks are. So we're still feeling the impact because what did they say? Something like, I don't have this number in front of me, but how many computers have to be turned off and manually reset? This is going to take a long time, and none of us know at this moment how vulnerable anything we do online is. Take heed to this, because in the meantime, we trust our bank, we trust Chase, we trust the big ones, the small, whatever. Secret bank ratings show U.S. regulators' concern on handling risk. Oh my God. I mean, I really want you to think about this. We already know we don't really know because they hide it. The levels of derivative bets, just big, huge bets that are embedded in the FDIC insured banks. We saw that all of them failed to create credible plans for their liquidation because there is no credible plan. If a big bank goes down, I got news for you. We're all going down. If enough small banks go down, we're all going down. Do you see how this can impact everything that we do? I mean, really, a key U.S. regulator has privately found that half of the major banks it oversees have an inadequate grasp of a broad swath of potential risks, from cyber attacks to employee blunders. How safe do you really feel inside of this full surveillance cyber system? I really want you to be watching some of the other videos that we're doing this week, because quite to tell you honestly, you can't make this stuff up. This is not even science fiction. The full surveillance economy, I started talking about this. I think the first video I did on it was 2017 or something like that. 2015 is when I talked about tokenization and things like that. But in the meantime, what do we have? Gold jumps to record as traders ramp up bets on a Fed rate pivot. What does that mean? Well, that means that we can grow. Oops, we move things around because I have a new microphone. Let us know if you like it. But what that really means is that they're going to drop rates down and create a whole bunch more money and a whole bunch more debt. And for the corporations, that's great. For you and me, that means that this stuff has less and less and less value. It's just paper, or in the case of Scotiabank and probably most of your money, it's in the banking system. It's not even real. I mean, kind of like, I got to say, you see, can you get a good picture of this? We'll put this up. What this is, and I'm looking there, is a Bitcoin. What color is it? Gold. Why do you think that they make cryptocurrencies gold, silver, and platinum? Because they want you to think that that's what it is. But it's not. It's intangible. You can't hold it. You can't own it. And so I know a lot of people right now are going to say, oh, but I could put it on a thumb drive and I could take it. Well, look at all of this material that's being hacked in cyberspace. How safe do you really think that is? You've got to rethink this. You've got to have a strategy, a sound money strategy, and a plan. And that plan has to include food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. But hey, gold jumps on record as traders ramp up bets on Fed rate pivot, because going to zero didn't help anything, but hey, going back down will. Fed's pal says recent inflation readings add to the confidence that they can lower rates. What do you think is going to happen when they actually do lower that rate and start with this? How about even more noticeable inflation? How about that? And then what are they going to do, right? That's where the hyperinflation comes in, because when that happens, and somebody was asking me the other day, what is that order? What does that really look like? Okay, there will be some kind of crisis, whether it's this or it's a banking or a stock market, whatever. There'll be some kind of crisis that will justify a Fed pivot because they're setting it up. In other words, the Fed dropping interest rates all the way back down. Will they go to zero? We'll see, right? Running up those printing presses to create even more money in the system. And then we get high inflation again, which is noticeable to the public who is already feeling that pain. And boom, all confidence is lost and we're in hyperinflation. And according to the velocity of money, honestly, this is my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that we are already in the early stages of it. So, okay, because we all know that the pivot means more debt and more inflation. And there is really only one cure. And that, my friends, is sound money. That is the only cure for the inflation disease. And now I will take questions, but I need to start with an email, so bear with me here. Nope. We're having a day, let me tell you. Okay, this is from Trish, and she was talking to one of our strategy specialists, and she asked this question, and I thought that it was a great question, and I promised it would be the first question that I asked. So, I have a couple questions. According to the UCC rule, your equity can be taken in homes and cars that have liens on them. Therefore comes the saying, you will own nothing. Yep. Let's say a family owns their home, paid off the mortgage, and currently holds the deed without any liens in their safe. Can that equity be taken under the UCC rule by any means? Nope. And that's why a key part of the strategy is to use the undervalued gold, that when they do that overnight reset, right, where they revalue the dollars, this stuff that has no value into this stuff that is all value because it's used in every sector of the global economy. Part of that strategy is to take, you buy the amount of gold that you need to cover that mortgage now, but maybe it's going to be 10 ounces right now. By the time it actually happens, though, maybe it'll be a quarter of an ounce or 1 ounce or one coin, right? So yes, that is a really good point, Trish, and it is definitely part of the strategy. For anything other than tax payments, so late tax payments, that's also part of the strategy, because the two risks, well, there are more than two risks, but two risks for home ownership, we'll just kind of go there, is the mortgage risk and the property tax risk. So the property tax I like to do with fractional gold coins. The mortgage I like to take care of with a low quality level. It's all the same gold content. That has nothing to do with quality. But higher population means more of them and a higher level of blemish. And bam, as soon as we get that overnight devaluation, because history shows us we have, roughly a 9-month window, but I'm not going to wait for that 9-month window because I don't know how big that window is going to be. What I do know is that, like they've done in so many other countries before, Germany was a great example in the 20s and 30s, right, early, of that overnight reset and being able to, because they were holding gold, bam, pay off that mortgage, and also, bam, in 1933 during the Depression, so between 29 and 33, even if you had your house paid off, if you couldn't pay your property taxes, you lost that property. So we definitely need to ensure that you can always pay your property taxes. Now let me go back to this. They are current on tax payments and hold a year Okay, so let me kind of go back here. For anything other than late tax payments, they are current on tax payments and hold a year of payments in cash and the rest in gold. I don't know that it's not the payments part, right? Because during hyperinflation, what they'll do if you're holding a mortgage is they are most likely, because this is what they've done, is you are in a circumstance in hyperinflation, just like kind of a lot of people were in 2008. Your property is going to be, if you have a mortgage on it, you might owe more than the current market value of the property. And you might have a problem coming up with that money because we're in hyperinflation, right? So unemployment rises, the middle class, whatever is left of it is completely decimated, etc. So you can lose your property if you aren't in a position to do that. A year's worth of payments in cash, you don't want to carry those payments through. You want to just get it taken care of, then I don't have to worry about it, right? It's just like, I'm not worried about what happens in the stock market because I don't own stocks. I'm an ex-stockbroker. I know what's going on. I know how overvalued it is. And I know, because I was there on Black Monday in '87, I know how quickly things can change. I'm just in gold, mostly, and silver, right? I can sleep well at night because I have my insurance. Can they do the same thing with auto loans and equity? Yes, they can. So part of the strategy is taking all of that fixed rate debt, making sure you have enough gold in your possession to, bam, pay any of that fixed rate debt off. Because what you're really doing is executing exactly the same strategy as the government is, which is to inflate away the value of the dollars and repay debt with dollars that have no value, especially in that hyperinflationary circumstance. You really can't buy anything with it. They just never answer. Okay, a lot of my people still ask these questions. So this is from the consult. No, this is still from Tricia. Can they do the same thing with auto loans and equity? A lot of my people still ask these questions. And yes, I have read the David Webb book and watched the videos on it. They just never answer the question of whether or not a fully paid off home can be taken. You have to have the gold to make sure that whatever they come up with, because there are even other laws that, the eminent domain laws say that they can take anything from you. They just have to pay you fair value. And since they are the ones that get to manipulate the market, by creating a whole bunch of gold that doesn't exist, changing the interest rate, all of this stuff, they're the ones that manipulate the market. You just need to make sure that you are covered. This is also why I personally only buy the collectible coins, because they are so far below their true fundamental value. And that's true with, I didn't put bullion out here, but that's true with bullion too. The difference between the two is these are maybe 2% of the physical gold market. The rest of it is bullion. Well, how many people do you think own these? Not many. They'd have to look at each individual coin to determine fair value. It ain't worth it. But with bullion, since that is kind of a combination of a manipulated market as well as a physical market, that's the easiest one to manipulate. And I think it'll look like this, because if you look on the bullion coins, and I do have the one, so let's just look at it. Yep, this is the one. And it has a face value, and it says 1 ounce fine gold, and it has a $50 face value. Wait a minute. This is 1 ounce of gold. Is this going to cost you $50 to buy? It's going to cost a lot more of these things to buy. The official U.S. price of gold is $42.22. So what ends up happening is that eventually in this country too, there will be a black market that develops. And we'll see the official price held back, suppressed down, while the black market price is going up. When they do that overnight revaluation, that's when you're going to see the jump. It happens every time. So I hope that this answers your question, Trish, and I really appreciate you asking it because it's a great question and we need to know. It's part of having a strategy. And RJ, so now I'll put this down. RJ asks, what happens to government pensions if America defaults? What percentage did Greece lose? Well, government pensions are, okay, there's a few different things. Where's my chopstick? Okay, right? So government pensions are either borrowed against, but they're in government debt, or they're in some form of debt or some form of stocks, right? So stocks and bonds and maybe some private equity and things like that. But they are invested in things that are denominated in this. So will they take your pension away? Well, probably not. They'll probably pay you out whatever it is that they had originally promised to pay you out in that pension. It's just that this can't buy anything because it has zero value. And if you look on the purchasing power chart at the FRED, F-R-E-D, which is the Federal Reserve Education Department, and you look on the index on the left-hand side, you see where the purchasing power started out at 100 and it's down to 0. And we are very close to that. Officially, we have 3 cents left. I think it's less than that. So, what's going to happen to the pensions? A market crisis would be a justification for not paying that out. But let's say none of that piece happens. They will pay you out what they say in terms of this. But this won't buy you anything. So whether it's Social Security or a government pension or a 401k that is only invested in the markets or anything like that, whatever you can only convert back into this, it has no value. And I don't know off the top of my head what percentage Greece lost because they are still part of the Euro system, which means that their pensions are denominated in euros. If it were in their own currency, then it would have gone to 0. But it will go to 0 even if they're part of the Euro system because we're at the end of this experiment's life cycle. I mean, frankly, it's that simple. That also is why you don't want a year's worth of cash. Now, it depends on your circumstance for different reasons, but I would not be holding a year's worth of mortgage payments in cash to make sure that I can pay that mortgage payment. I'd be holding it in gold so that it takes a whole lot less because you can always convert it because it has the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of buyer. This is not rocket science. It's actually pretty simple. Supply and demand. That's it. Okay, and Alex Riley asks, what are the negatives to having one of those versus a non-graded pre-33? There's a trail of gold. Okay, so I think you're referring to the eagle, the bullion?
That is correct. When you were holding that up, that's what you asked the question. Correct.
Okay. Well, for me personally, and you guys have to understand that I don't really care what anybody else blah, blah, blah says. I have experience with this. And my Uncle Al in 1964 had 2 floor safes full of these when you couldn't own 5 ounces of these, more than 5 ounces of these. I want the kind of gold that doesn't matter whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. And that's the pre-33s, right? They're so severely undervalued that it doesn't really matter. And I want the kind of gold that I can use in the normal marketplace because what I'm doing, and hopefully what everybody that's watching this and even more than that are doing, is they're executing a strategy. And part of that strategy is to have the wealth transfer our way. Since wealth never disappears, it just shifts location. So I want to be in a position to purchase, because I'm holding my purchasing power, to purchase those income producing assets when I see that cup formation happening. That cup formation, it's not a straight line like that. I mean, it's bouncy, but it starts here and then it goes like this, right? The cup formation is an accumulation pattern, and it acknowledges that the smartest guys in the room have recognized an undervalued circumstance, and while the public is going, oh no, I don't want that, they are quietly accumulating, right? That's what we want to do. We want to do what the smartest guys in the room on any given topic are doing for themselves. We can see the insiders on Wall Street, read Jamie Dimon and Mark Zuckerberg and all those guys. They are selling out with their stocks near highs. You got to think about that. So the real negativity for me is that this is more likely to be confiscated. Desperate governments do desperate things, and it really is that simple. And by the way, because a lot of people will say, well, they don't have money backing the gold. The gold doesn't back the money anymore. It's not a monetary instrument. Well, according to the Bank for International Settlements, which is the biggest central bank in the world, because it's a central banker's central bank, yuppers, this is sound money. And its most important function is to hold your purchasing power over time. The spot gold market that people look at and go, oh, look at gold jumps. Well, they never say spot gold contract jumps, do they? No, they say gold jumps. Why? Because they want you to think about their garbage as real gold. But guess what? Just like Bitcoin, and I know a lot of people that are watching probably own Bitcoin, and as long as you're properly diversified, you've got to do what you are comfortable doing, right? I personally don't own any at this point. I'll let you know when I do. Just like I will let you know when I'm doing anything, I will let you know. And then you do whatever you want, but you're going to have a strategy so you'll know how to execute, because there's all different kinds of gold. So if you haven't talked to us yet, scan that code, click that link, make some time to do it. By the way, are you liking this new mic? I have to get used to it, so I don't really mean to touch it. And does it make things go wonky when I accidentally hit it? No? Okay. So another question, please. Okay, and Alex Riley asked, I already did that, sorry. Paul Dunnigan asks, are goldbacks considered sound money? Well, goldbacks would be considered sound money because they have the gold very thin, but embedded in the bill. So the answer to that would be yes, because it's physical gold. And, but I could say, because I can see a place for them a little bit in part of the strategy. We aren't carrying them at this point, but they are gorgeous. I will say that. There is a huge premium on that. As long as you can stay underneath fundamental value, I don't really care about premiums. I'm just being honest with you about that.
Can you explain that, like your hesitation with the fundamental value? What does that mean?
Well, the fundamental value is the true value of gold. So when they start doing those overnight resets, on the first one, they're not going to go to its true value. I haven't checked it in a little while, but the last time I checked it, it was over 40,000 an ounce, which I get how outrageous that sounds, but it's only because we are nominally confused into thinking that these numbers have value. But anybody that's my age, and I'm going to be 70 in October, what did that $20 bill used to buy you? And what does it buy you today? Guess what? What did it buy you a year ago? What did it buy you 6 months ago? Right? These numbers have no value at all. But when they do those overnight resets, when that pack of gum costs $4,000 to buy, which I know sounds outrageous, but you can talk to a lot of people that have lived through it. It's not so outrageous. Then what do? They do those overnight revaluations, lopping off zeros. How many they're going to do, I don't know. What that coverage ratio is going to be, I don't know, Jim Rickards values it and things probably based on the coverage ratio that it'd be closer to 27,000 at this point in time. Either way, if you don't spend more than $27,000 for an ounce of gold, you're okay. And the more of this that they do, the higher that number goes. But it's just a number. An ounce of gold maintains your standard of living. And questions? Okay. And let's see. And Jim Mulvena asks, so this glitch has shown how vulnerable we are to disruptions to banking. Has it not also highlighted the folly of CBDCs? And give justification for sound money, seeing the threats of use to EMPs? Voila. Thank you, Jim. You said it very, very, very well. Yeah, that's my point. You want to get to safety right now. What's safe? Physical, sound money in your possession, plus food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community and shelter. And I'm probably going to be a little premature on this announcement, but I'm so excited I can't stand it. Now that we have Arthur, along with Adam, we are planning out a new YouTube channel on the rest of the mantra. So stay tuned because we want to do this really, 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 really well. But it'll be coming out soon. We'll let you know when. Because you need your foundation in gold and silver. You need that. That's your sound money foundation. But you need everything else too in order to sustain a reasonable standard of living. Penny G asks, why people don't protest and demand no digital money. To do the fiat change civilly, they should issue new fiat attached to gold, exchange all the valid savings and debts. Well, okay, so that's really interesting, Penny, because I absolutely agree with you, except that fiat, the definition of fiat is by decree. Right? So that is another government-backed money. And what backs it? The full faith and credit of the government. So it has to be sound money that can be convertible. That's why I'm watching what's happening in Zimbabwe so closely, because quite honestly, there's your real life experiment, right? They need to use the gold, and it always over 4,800 times, 100% of the time, there ends up being a component of gold back in the monetary system because they need your confidence. And this is also why to have, look, revolution is coming. Let's face it. People are getting upset with this. Younger people are recognizing it. Right? All over the world, we are seeing protests rise. Gosh, a year ago, 400, now 700. I mean, come on. We see that. But we can have a very peaceful and quiet revolution just by converting that fiat money into sound money. It's not that complicated. And we don't have to risk our lives or protest. This is the protest. This is it. This is a protest. Easy peasy. And Von Che, and if I screw up anybody's name, please forgive me, okay, asks, hello, Lynette. Thank you very much, because you gave me a full. Von Che, would you suggest Bloomberg in order to get real financial news or another source? No. I do use Bloomberg. But the reason why I use Bloomberg is because in all the channels that I found, I've got my scrolling here of the headlines and down on the bottom. So I can kind of listen and look and work at the same time. But if you're looking for the talking heads, you've got to understand that starting in the early 80s with President Reagan, that's when they formalized the perception management program. That is a real program. And their job is to nudge people in the direction that they want them to go in. And what we've been experiencing in whether it's media or it's banking or wherever is a consolidation of power into fewer and fewer and fewer places. So any place like CNBC or Bloomberg or anything like that, and I use those headlines, Financial Times, probably a little more honest, only because you're getting it from a different source. You're getting it from a European source or a British source versus an American source. But in any of those, the way that I use them is I want to hear what they're talking about because I know that's what people are listening to. And then when something catches my attention, that's when I do my deep dives into it and I do the research. So you can use them, right, for a heads up, but I would definitely not be using them as, oh, well, that must be true. It's just a starting point to see what they're lying about this time because it's controlled by a very small group of media people. You want real information? Tune in here. Tune in to George Gammon, my friend. Tune in to Gerald Celente. Tune into, there's lots of sources, but use the traditional, well, they're not even traditional. Use the talking heads as a starting point, and when something doesn't make sense or something catches your attention, dig deeper, or ask these questions, and I'll dig deeper for you.
And I'm going to piggyback on that real quickly and
Sure.
say, by the way, low blood pressure. This is Adam, by the way. I'm the producer here, so I'm the one that was yelling before, but now I have a mic, so I can get all sorts of trouble now. But Vanshay, we actually just did a video with George Gammon, and that conversation was actually really, really good. So definitely go and check that out. I'll put the link in the description below for you. But definitely go and check that out. It's a really good video that we just got done doing.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that, Adam. That's why I gave him a mic, because he says good stuff, and I'm sure that Arthur will be joining in on conversations as he's starting. And I'll tell you what, I always like it when somebody new comes in, because they look at this stuff with more similar eyes to you than I do. I've been doing this on some level my entire life. And my goal is to translate this financial noise into understandable language so that you can make educated choices that puts your best interest first. And so I love it when you chime in, and Arthur especially, because, after you're here for a day, you probably are starting to be more, I don't want to say tainted, but more educated. So yeah, always chime in. If I say something that you don't understand, that's true for you guys too. If I didn't explain it well enough, my job is to figure out how to explain it so that you understand it. That's my goal, and that's my job. So, Rosie asks, is gold in all forms a good investment? Necklaces, rings, bracelets, etc. Well, gold or silver in any form is monetary at its base. And of course, you always see me wearing a lot of gold, silver, and all of that. And actually, I started buying my daughters gold rings when they were 12. And I've already kind of accumulated some stuff for my granddaughter. And the reason why I did that was because eventually they went off to college. Eventually they moved out of the house. I always wanted them to have some form of money. When I travel, I have travel jewelry, just really simple, chains, gold and silver, so that if something happens when I'm wherever it is that I might be in the world and I need money for whatever reason, my cards don't work or I run out of cash, I always have money with me wherever I am. So the markup that you're going to pay, again, is a lot higher than the markup that you're going to pay on this, but it is monetary at its base. And so is this sterling silver chopstick. Anything marked sterling or 925 is 92.5% pure. 14 karat, I'm pretty sure that's like 58% pure. 18 karat is 75% pure. So even 10 carat has value because gold is indestructible. So we can recover it. Any more questions? Okay. And status code 200 asks, even in today's recent gold market, the raw pre-33 is at or near spot price. That itself should tell you that people aren't collecting. Why would prices be below the red book value? Well, the same reason why that's why it's a bargain, for goodness sakes. This goes into the importance of identifying the true value of any asset or instrument, not just gold or silver. So you want to take advantage of that because it all goes back to that perception management. If you look at the ultra, and that's why I like that for my emergency savings. To your point, I love it, right? So I'm buying it ridiculously undervalued. I really don't care because I'm quite clear on the fundamental value and I'm taking advantage of it, just like the central banks are, buying more gold than they ever have. So why would prices be below the red and blue book value? Because of perception management. And what do you want to do? You want to buy low and sell high, right? How does this stuff work? How does this stuff work? Thank you, Uncle Al. If he's watching me from down there, I know he's very happy because I talk about him all the time, but I do love him. I still love him. But anyway, so he taught me how hard assets, how tangible assets actually work. And it's not rocket science either. Since this never goes away, thousands of years, but it always goes from undervaluation to fair valuation to overvaluation to fair valuation to undervaluation, right? Constantly in that infinity loop, right? Where do you want to buy it? You want to buy it when it's overvalued or undervalued? Take your pick. I'd rather buy it when it's undervalued. What about the stock market? It's severely overvalued. Why don't you buy that? How about some speculative real estate? Yeah, that's overvalued too. How about buying that? It doesn't make sense. So it's critical no matter what you do, the real trend is not the stock market going up. It's the purchasing power going to zero. Don't be blinded by numbers. Don't be blinded by them. I'm telling you the truth. So great question. Thank you for asking that.
Lynette, you talked a little bit about fundamental value. You've said that a couple different times today. And you've said kind of a cycle, right? Overvalued, undervalued.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Tell me about how you're collecting those numbers or you're gathering those numbers of value, right? Fundamental value. Tell me a little bit about that. And then how does that apply to gold? Like you're coming up with a number, you said 40,000, I think it was earlier. Uh-huh. How are you getting that? Where are you getting that from?
So first of all, you have to, when you're looking at it, you have to go back. There's a little bit of nuance in determining what is the most important function that this asset or instrument, what's the most important thing that it was created to do, right? With dollars, we'll just start there because it's the flip side of the gold. With fiat money, inflation was positioned with intention into the currency. Why? For two key reasons. One, because governments wanted to tax you without having to make that visible. So you've got the inflation tax because governments get to use that money when it's more newly created, but certainly before you do, okay? For corporations, they wanted to pay you less, but they knew that if you were used to $10, you weren't going to accept $5. However, if you could make that $10 spend like $5 and inflate the prices for these corporations, well, then they accomplish that, right? So the most important function of this stuff is to create nominal confusion so that you get blinded by the numbers and you stay inside of their system where all of these dollars, euros, yen, it doesn't matter, any of them, right, are constantly losing value because the Federal Reserve or the whatever that central bank is has the ability to do that. There is an unlimited amount of this. So they'd rather you look at the stock market and see that going up rather than looking at the purchasing power, which is the real trend. So what is the fundamental value of this? What does the Federal Reserve say? 0. Why are you laughing at me, Adam?
Good way to put it.
Well, because it's just true, and that's according to the Federal Reserve. And you can go on their website, on the FRED, F-R-E-D, put purchasing power of consumer dollar in the search bar, and you can see it for yourself. Now, well, yeah, I've got it right there on the bill.
I just want to shout out Richie Luxury real quickly. I know you're always in here. Really, really appreciate you being here, answering questions, and being in the chat for us, helping us out. Really,
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. I mean, really, honestly, love every single one of you guys being here. But Richie, I know you're here all the time. I just want to shout you out. And I also see that you like our new Instagram that we've been putting out. We've been putting out quite a bit more Instagram content, some of the short form stuff.
Oh, let me tell you.
They're loving it.
The team that we've been building here is ridiculous. I mean, to every single person, the highest quality level, so smart, nicely diversified. I mean, everybody's got a strong opinion, and I love that because you learn things, you see things, all the different angles. So thank you for bringing that up. But also, really, this is the best company I've ever worked for. Honest to God. Honest to God.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
Amen to
right.
that, guys.
Okay.
No one's forcing me. Well, just kidding.
Well, let's see. But we do have fun. But I mean, the energy is just, it's like contagious, right? The energy, when we were all together yesterday, I mean, the energy is phenomenal. If you guys, if anybody is in Phoenix, come to our new offices. We're not in there yet. We're still in the temporary space, but it's right next door. You can see. They are so gorgeous and so sexy with lots of windows. Did we put out any images of the new office yet?
We kind of kept that so far. We're going to probably make it longer. You know what I mean?
Okay. We're going to show you everything that we're doing. It's so excited, and we really want to share it with our community. With our community, we support community and sound money. Okay. So let's go back to fundamental value and why I say that it's $40,000, okay? It's very simple. Fiat money, sound money, because this cannot be created. There is a infinite amount, finite amount, right? So that's the difference right there. It has the broadest base of functionality because it is used in every single sector. Every single sector of the global economy. So how do I know how much it's worth? It's really simple. Since these are the same, just the flip side of the coin, all I need to know is roughly how many of these have been created. Well, how do I know that? Well, because this is a debt instrument. It's created from debt. So I take a look at all of the debt that exists all over the world. You can do it inside of each country, but this is a global issue, so I'm doing it globally. And the last time I checked, according to the IFF, it was $313 trillion. Okay? Now, we're not talking about all the derivatives and all the other crap on top of it. We're just talking about the number of fiat money, government debt-based money that was created. Okay? So all you do is you divide all of the debt that's been created by all of the gold that exists in the whole entire universe, whether it's in ground or above ground, whether it's in jewelry form or it's in coin form or it's in any other form. And then that tells you what the true fundamental value of sound money is in terms of fiat money. Now, I know how outrageous that sounds, but think about it. This has a face value of $20. If you went back to 1900 and said, one of these days, this is really going to be $2,400. They would have looked at you like you have 3 heads, and they wouldn't have believed it, because this masks the truth. This tells you the truth, but you have to learn how to read the language. That's what I'm trying to do for you. But anybody can do it. And what I don't know, so I want to clarify this, because that is, at the moment that I pulled those numbers, that was that number. The more of this that they do, the higher that number goes. Okay, like I have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. That means I'm a trillionaire, but I can't buy anything with it. And that's the point of the purchasing power. And that's why what I don't know is what that cover ratio is going to be. In other words, if they were to do it tonight on a 1-to-1 basis, which is not likely, but if they were, then yeah, that's where it'd go. It'd go somewhere around 40 grand. But there might be a 2-to-1 or a 4-to-1. I don't know what that basis is going to be yet, and nobody's going to know that until it actually happens. So that's how you get that. Did you understand that, Adam? Does anybody have any more questions?
Absolutely. There was some questions on how you're getting that number. So you definitely went into depth in that. And to kind of like someone said, I think it's M77AXY. They said it really perfectly. Wheelbarrows of cash and no purchasing power.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. And then that person also went down to say fiat money is good fertilizer. So yeah, you're onto something there. You're getting the point. That's for sure. You're getting the point.
Yep. Good, because it's important. I mean, how can you make educated choices if you don't have the data? You can't. So that's what we're trying to do here. And XRP Vegas, selling my house, crypto, or gold. Oh, you're asking me what should I sell? My house, your crypto, or your gold?
I think he's saying, I'm selling my house. Should I get crypto or gold?
Oh, is that what you're asking?
I believe he's saying, yeah, selling my house. Should I get crypto or gold?
Well, you have to do, I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I'm doing, right? I don't own any crypto at this point, because I do view it like a Trojan horse to get us used to cryptocurrencies, to make it easier for them to transition us into CBDCs and a full surveillance currency, which I'm talking more about the surveillance currency in another video that we're putting out this week. So you definitely want to pay attention, to these things. But for me, right? But that's the point of the sound money strategy, because you're in a different time in your life. Maybe you have different goals than I have. Maybe you have different circumstances. So the strategy is actually something that I developed while studying, or since studying currencies in 1987, and then discovering that, like everything else, they have a life cycle. And it makes sense. Everything has a life cycle. You're not going to look at me and think that I'm going to be the age of my 9.5-year-old granddaughter, right? You're not going to look at her and think that she's going to be my age. So you just have to get familiar with what currencies look like at their different life cycles. And no doubt, I mean, seriously, not one tiny, itty bitty, teeny weeny doubt we are in the end stage of life for this crap. And they know it. So why not abuse it, right? You're declaring bankruptcy and you get a credit card bill. Spend, right? You get a new credit card. I didn't mean a bill, a credit card. You spend. Well, that's what's happening. Pivot. Go ahead, Fed. Pivot. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. Do you see the national debt being at $50 trillion by Christmas? Oh, well, we just hit $35 trillion. And I have to say, even when you're looking at that, and you can see that at the Fed as well, when you're looking at that, that's just one component. They are hiding so much from us. And oh, by the way, what about all of those derivative bets based upon all of that debt? It's a joke. It's probably in the quadrillions right now. We just don't know it. All we get to see is the itty bitty tip of the iceberg. Okay? The danger lies in what's underneath, not what we can see. And I can guarantee you there's a whole lot more debt than that. So it probably already is at 50 trillion or in the quadrillions, to be honest with you. That's why you got to have sound money, because this sure is not sound money. And Tucker Reynolds asked, 22 carats or 24 carats? Which should I be buying? I know Canada will only accept 24 carats. That's actually not so. The Canadian Maple Leafs are like, most of them are 4.9s, some are 5.9s, but it's not a function of accepting, because you will get paid out on 10 carat gold, right? 24 karat gold is very, very, very soft. So is 22. So a lot of the gold jewelry from, say, like India is 22 carats and absolutely gorgeous. Whether it's the new Eagle or it's the pre-33, right? And you can, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little bit difference in size. This has the same amount of gold content weight. That's really what you're most interested in. And then there are some other nuances, but these are 22 carats, right? And whether it's the new one or the old one. So I don't really think that matters that much, but again, I'm going to take you back to the strategy. What are you trying to accomplish? I don't know just with that question. And Linda Adrid asks, what does Lynette think about an idea Stephanie Pomboy put out that the Fed make interest on treasuries tax-free, encourage retail purchases versus other governments? Well, what I think about that, it is a risk transfer. That's what it is. And once they have enough risk transferred from the few, right, so from the elites to the many, then you will find that this whole con game is just too expensive to keep going. That's what I think about that. I don't own any treasuries. And I will say this, when I first became a stockbroker in '86, that's what I cut my teeth on, were treasuries. Why? Because I figured that the government could tax you to get the money to pay you back, and therefore I couldn't burn anybody while I was learning all of this stuff. But you were also getting 8.5% to 10% on treasury bonds at that time. And nobody ever talked about you running out of retirement money, because if you had $1 million, you could put them in treasuries and you'd get $100,000 a year, which in the 80s was a lot of money. Now it's not so much. But in the 80s, that was a lot of money. What we're talking about in the strategy is converting your wealth into income producing assets that you cannot outlive. Because these days, you got enough money till you're 83. Oh, what happens after you're 83? You're still going to need income. So that also goes back into the whole strategy and why it's so important to make that phone call and get your strategy in place, quite simply. So, yeah, I think it's just a way, they should make treasuries tax-free. I mean, they are federally tax-free. They're just not state tax-free, just like muni bonds are typically, and there could be different kinds of bonds, but like municipal bonds are typically state tax-free and not federally tax-free. So governments could make them completely tax-free, and then the naive public would probably buy them because they don't have enough other countries willing to buy our debt anymore. That's what I think about that. Okay, Goldens and Coons. When the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar drops enough, does it ever get to the point during hyperinflation where people just stop working because there is no incentive? And the answer is yes, and we've seen it happen in a lot of countries. I think somebody asked a question about Greece earlier, and in 2014-15, when Europe was having its sovereign debt crisis, and Greece particularly was the poster child for that, in hyperinflation, again, it goes back to the question about the pensions too. They can give you as many of these as they want to. You just won't be able to buy anything with it. So, nurses, doctors, firefighters, police, they're on the government dole. And as we've recently seen in Nigeria, where they were giving them huge raises while the population wasn't getting a raise at all, but was suffocating from the hyperinflation that they were experiencing, what did they do? They protested. So let me go back to that question, because I think I kind of went around in a circle. And when the purchasing power of the dollar drops enough, well, I don't know, 3 cents seems enough. Does it ever get to the point during hyperinflation? Yeah, either the jobs aren't there, which is certainly a possibility, or there's no point in working. And what we find is that the middle class has the greatest shift in standard of living. If you're poor and you have nothing, well, there's only so far down that you can go. If you have assets, right, then your standard of living doesn't change so drastically, and it even puts you in a position to accumulate wealth and be in a better position on the other side of this. It's the middle class that does not prepare for this eventuality that has the greatest shift in standard of living. On average, globally, about an 80% shift, and they end up in abject poverty. So, going back to the question on the jewelry and all of that, you need to really be aware. And going back to what happened during the sovereign debt crisis, that's what happened. People were pulling out their jewelry and using it as money, right? They were pulling it out. Why not just prepare for it? And can you see how teeny weeny? This is a $1 gold coin, a 20th of an ounce, right? This is an ounce. Can you see how tiny it is, right? It's part of the strategy, because what matters is not just that you have gold and silver, it's the kind of gold and silver to perform whatever it is, the function that you need. And that's why it has to be based upon your circumstances. It can't be based on mine. It needs to be based on yours.
And I also want to say we had an amazing interview with RPAD.
Oh, we did.
About hyperinflation. And that gave us the realities of it from a survivor. And again, I will link that video in the description below. It's called The Reality of Hyperinflation with the Survivor, and it's Star Path Academy is RPAD. Amazing interview where we went into depth about all of this stuff that we're talking about when it comes to hyperinflation. He got to see that firsthand. So really good interview. Again, I'll link that in the description for you guys.
Thank you, Adam. Oh, I like you with the mic. I do. Okay, and Jim Mulvena asks, can eminent domain be used against property held by a living trust? That's a good question. I'm not really sure. Can we write that down and I'll check with my attorney? I would think that the answer is yes, but a trust is supposed to be a level of protection. So I don't know how to answer that yet, but I will find out. I'll go to my attorney and see what we can find out, and I'll let you know next week. And Richie Luxury asks, what is your gold to silver ratio, and are you expecting either gold or silver to break out or together? Okay, so I don't really personally care that much about a gold and silver ratio, because I'm really looking more at the function, what I'm trying to accomplish. And the gold silver ratio is more of a trading kind of tool. And I don't trade my gold and silver, because let me tell you, when it gets to fundamental value, you're not going to want to convert it just into those dollars. So this is what happens. And I do have it up. I just haven't quite gotten to it yet on how both gold and silver do during inflation, hyperinflation, and deflation. So I will do my best to get that done ASAP. I do have it up so I don't forget about it. But gold and silver, so what happens is that ratio gets more and more and more narrow, and then when we're in full boat hyperinflation, gold leads the pack because that's what they do the overnight resets against. They don't do it against silver, which is a combination, even though both of them are used in manufacturing and used in other parts of the economy, silver is kind of straddles both worlds between being a financial asset as well as an industrial metal. So during hyperinflation, a lot of business is going to slow down, but it's the gold that governments do those overnight resets against. So, and let me see that question one more time, because I think, and do I think that they will break out together? They haven't been breaking out together. Gold has already broken its cup formation, and silver has not, but is on the way, though it has in other currencies. So when I say both of these things, it can vary from currency to currency. So I'm just speaking about in terms of the US dollar, but in other currencies, silver has completed that cup. But no, I don't think they would break out together.
And Richie, I want to piggyback off that and just say the reason why she doesn't necessarily give, and I don't want to speak for you, but give a gold to silver ratio is because
I'll counter you if
because
I don't
you
agree.
see it being used for two different methods, right? One
Correct.
of
It's
them
not a
is used
trade.
for wealth preservation, and one of them is used for barterability. That's how you see the uses
Well,
of
yes.
those two metals,
Yes,
and that's why
that's
you don't
true.
necessarily buy or have an exact ratio, right, to give
Or care
someone,
about it.
right, or care about it, because you're using them for different purposes.
Right.
Does that sound about right? Am I right?
Right. Because when you're indicating a ratio, then really what you're indicating is a trade. And gold and silver, to me, is definitely not a trade. And Tuco Ramirez asks, what about your debt when it comes to preparing yourself for when stuff hits the fan? That's a great question. The variable rate debt, you ain't ever getting out of debt. It is a nightmare. Look at the interest rates that you're already having to pay on credit cards and things like that, right? So when we hit hyperinflation, those interest charges just go through the roof. And also when you're looking at that fixed rate debt, if you are not in a position to pay it off, there is a certain period of time that nope, they can't change it. It's a contract, right? And that's why I think we have that 9-month window, though I don't care about the 9-month window either. I'm just gonna bam, do it and be done with it, right? Because I'm more secure than that. I don't need to take that risk. So what you're really looking at, can I see the question again? Because sometimes I go off on a tangent. Okay, all right. So your fixed rate debt, what you want is you want enough gold, and this isn't actually really the coin because it's too high quality a level, but it's something like this, but with a lot higher population, a lot more blemishes, but the same level of gold content weight, 22 carats in here for an ounce, and what we're really seeing, I need the question. I'm going to pot you. Okay, so what you really want to do is you want to take all of that fixed rate debt, calculate out how much gold you need, and when they do that overnight reset, ba-bam, you pay that debt off. But variable rate debt, if you have a lot of it, start getting rid of it. Get rid of it as quickly as you can. Do I think interest rates are going to come down? Yes, but even so, if it's on credit cards and things like that, how much down did they really come? Right? I mean, bend over, baby. Right? And VAG asks, back during the Great Depression, taxes were a lot lower than they are now, right? Do you foresee property taxes going down when the economy collapses? Not at first. History shows us, and actually that's a great question because I'm watching it in Hawaii because my daughters love Hawaii. And so when we went there, we went and looked at properties, and I looked at a beautiful beach house, and the property taxes there were $4,300 a month. So this is actually something that I am looking at myself. And this is what happens. They go up because this is how governments generate income, is through fees and through taxation. However, if you have enough homes that are lost in the process, it is possible, and I don't know the answer to this yet, but again, I'm paying attention to it, that they will go down in order to encourage you to buy, right? Just like the other question, well, they can lower interest rates. That encourages you. Look at where the price of houses are. And houses, real estate was targeted by the central banks for reflation. Why? Because they generate a lot of income via real estate taxes. So that's a great, I think they will go up before they go down. And I also think that that property that, and I didn't buy it, guys, so don't get the wrong idea about this, because it didn't matter what I'm looking at, right? I know that globally on average, I expect a decline of about 85%, because that's what history tells me. So if this house was $5 million, I expect at some point that it'll be 85% less. And I expect property taxes to go up as the price is declining, and then I expect them to go down. Time will tell us if I'm right or if I'm wrong.
Last question.
Okay. Marcel Melters asks, would the central bank somehow be able to take control of 100% physical gold and silver-backed digital currencies such as Kinesis Money offers? If it's bullion and they pass a law? But what's good about something like Kinesis is, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that you can convert and pull the physical metal, but it's still going to be bullion. However, I wouldn't do anything unless it was actually convertible into here, and I certainly wouldn't do it with all my portfolio. For a small portion of my portfolio, so because I think Kinesis also has something like credit cards and things like that, right? So for a small barterable piece, sure. But you want to balance it out. You can diversify in the metals as well. Let's say you're a big bullion believer, right? And you think, oh, Lynette, you know what? You're all wet. There's no way that they're going to confiscate. So you're living on hopium because it doesn't work with history. That's not what history tells us. But let's say that for a minute. So you decide, no, I'm going to buy a bunch of bullion. Then I would strongly encourage you to diversify so that should they do an overt confiscation, because inflation is a covert confiscation, right? Taxation is a covert confiscation, right? So there's all different ways for them to confiscate. They just don't want to use that term because then you get pissed off, right? So you want to properly diversify so that nope, that's the double eagle. This is the eagle, okay? So if you're buying this because you want it, you think this is okay and blah, 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 just make sure that you have enough of this so that if they do a covert confiscation, this recoups it. Because imagine how high these would go in terms of this or in terms of anything if this were the only kind of gold that you could actually hold and use in the real marketplace. Ta-dum! I rest my case. So this was a lot of fun today, you guys. Thank you so much. It really is my very favorite day of the week because I get to really be with you. And I prefer doing it live because we have screw ups or we have funny things. It just happens. So if you like this, please, please, please help us grow this channel. Give us a like, leave us a comment, share, share, share. Make sure you subscribe and send any questions that you have to questions@LynetteZang.com. And just know we are all in this together. And 100%, I know that we can make a difference. I know that we can have a seat at the table to make sure that the next system that we're going into is more fair. At least it starts out that way. So we all have to, look in the mirror and say, if not me, who? And if not now, when? And just come together in community and let's make this happen. Because 100% I know that we can make a positive difference for a lot of people. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.